is Darko. Thanks for making a date once again. Now, a special surveillance unit of the Ministry of Finance has impounded about 100 uncustomed vehicles in the country. These vehicles are said to have violated the customs and duty law on vehicle importation. Now, there's been a press conference that has just got underway in Accra. Joining me in the studio right now is my colleague Eben Sabute, who was there for us. It was an emergency press conference. Tell us about what the GRA said at that press conference.
Right, it was an emergency press conference, as you indicated earlier. According to the commissioner, there were some vehicles that were imported into the country that didn't pass through the necessary channels. They were not, they were supposed to pass through certain imports, classes. But according to him, these vehicles came in without all those necessary regulations. So talk of duty, they didn't pay duty. Talk of registration, they didn't pay all these things. They passed through illicit means and got the DVLA registration numbers, and then they started using them. So they've gone on, according to him, the Minister of Finance have constituted a board or a unit, which is the special surveillance unit at the Ministry of Finance. And what they did was to inspect various vehicles on our roads to see whether they have the necessary documents and they've passed through the right channels before entering into the country. So after an exercise, they've impounded about 100 of them, and most of them are going through ways, the channels to regularize them. Others who are not going through, the GRA is working to prosecute them, and the GRA commissioner is giving a caution to the public and then also such people that up to a certain time, if they are not able to come to regularize their vehicles, they are going to face the full rigors of the law. So the commissioner has been speaking to us in Accra. Let's hear him and what he's been explaining.
The Special Surveillance and Monitoring Unit is working in close collaboration with GRA to detect uncustomed vehicles, goods and other areas of revenue leakages. So far, the unit has arrested about 100 uncustomed vehicles whose owners are going through the process of paying the required duties. I wish to remind the general public that in accordance with Section 55, Subsection 1 of the Customs Act 2016, Act 891, a person who imports vehicles into the country shall pay import duties and any other inputs. It follows from this that the owners of the uncustomed vehicles have violated the law. Those who have vehicles in the country and are using the vehicles supposedly with registered numbers and have not paid the duties on them have violated the law. The work of the Special Surveillance and Monitoring Unit has confirmed that the number of uncustomed vehicles are many in the country. GRA is therefore calling on all owners of such vehicles to regularize the status of their vehicles with the Customs Division of the GRA. I also wish to advise the general public to verify the authenticity of the documents of any vehicle they intend to purchase with the Customs Division of GRA to be sure of the tax and duty status of such vehicles before payment. As an organization, GRA intends to vigorously pursue revenue without let. Accordingly, GRA is serving notice to the general public to ensure that all vehicles that they own have had their duties duly paid. This is to forestall any embarrassment to the society at large. GRA hopes to receive the cooperation of all in the enforcement of the laws that guide the operations of the GRA.
Commissioner General of the GRA, Emmanuel Kofi-Ntief, there are two questions. I'm just wondering how people are able to violate the customs laws. Is it to say that there are no proper structures in place to monitor? And what's the impact on revenue mobilization as explained by the Commissioner?
Okay, let me first answer the second question with the revenue mobilization issue. When such things happen, it means that the necessary tax that you are supposed to pay, you are free from that. You get rid, you go free and then you don't pay the tax, and the state lose that tax. In that way, the money that we are supposed to get from whatever activities that you are doing, we don't get. So it has a very huge, effect on revenue generation. Second question has to do with the mechanisms. Yes, there are mechanisms in place, and that is why the 100 have been impounded. According to the commissioner, some of them come in as ECOWAS, they pass through the ECOWAS channels, free movement among the member nations. So I can drive to Nigeria, I can drive to Togo, I can drive to Benin, provided I have the ECOWAS document. So some come in as ECOWAS vehicles or even as transit. And at the end of the day, they don't go back. When they don't go back, they pass through various means to get them satisfied. That's what he's been talking about.
Interesting developments. Thanks for bringing us up to speed. That was my colleague Ebenezer Sabute. Moving on to some other news we are following for you tonight. Firms operating in the securities and capital market are set to have their minimum capital requirement increased. Joy Business understands a new capital requirement would be announced soon, and operators may be giving up to 1 year to meet the new levels. The firms that would be affected by this significant increase in capital requirements would include those operating as brokerage dealers, custodians, fund managers, mutual fund managers, and investment advisors. According to the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Reverend Daniel Gbamitete, this move has been influenced by the current developments in the economy.
To come to the market with some some guidelines, including new capital requirements, for capital market operators. So, we really want to make sure that all the pieces are together. So, yes, we are approving some of these pending things. We are pushing them, but I'm very big on the fact that we are going to bring to the market some guidelines, for them to give us feedback before we go into implementation. And it is key to ensuring that we protect, the sanity or the integrity of the market. So, with the capital market, we have different players. We have custodians, we have brokers, we have fund managers, and so on and so forth. And so the capital requirement, even the exchange, so there are different levels. But if you take the one for fund managers, for instance, currently is at 100,000 Ghana cedis. That's woefully inadequate. So I will not give you an indicator, but I'll say that the increases will be significant. You must allow the market operators some time to be fully compliant. So definitely those sensitivities will be in play. We'll look at the situation and then come up with something that is feasible and practical. But we need to have stronger institutions playing in the capital market space.
Well, so what do players make of this development? My colleague Georgia Affe has been speaking with some of them after an investor meeting organized by the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Much anticipated news that all the market operators are expecting. Looking at what is happening at the Bank of Ghana regulated companies from the universal banks, we, the investment bank, have been expecting there's going to be an increment in capital requirement. But as to how substantial, we are yet to know. But we are much prepared against the increment.
I think that is something that we have all expected, that there will be some upward adjustment in the required capital of the market operators. I must add that some years back, the Ghana Stock Exchange took the step and increased the required capital of broker dealers, LDMs, which are also regulated by the SEC, from 100,000 to 1 million Ghana cedis. So we have all expected that, yes, the other capital market operators would also see an upward adjustment. Thankfully, this has been announced. I think the concern here is the way it was put, that it's going to be a significant increase. So people are going to be wondering exactly how much, and if it will be possible to be able to meet the new capital requirement.
In principle, market operators agree that for the industry to be able to be viable and ensure that investors get good returns, there must be an action in this direction, in the sense that if the barriers to entry are so low, then you have all sorts of entrants. And so once the threshold is raised, you can ensure that you have people who are really into the business of, let's say, asset management or a particular category.
Insurance companies are advocating the use of technology to boost insurance penetration in the country. The current penetration rate of 2% is said to be below industry standards. But speaking to Joy Business, the executive vice chairman of Vanguard Assurance, Dr. Gideon Amenyodo, said adopting new technologies like apps is the best way forward. He spoke with Joy Business at the launch of the Vanguard CIMG Hall of Fame Award and Social Responsibility Initiative.
The National Insurance Commissioner has stated that boosting insurance penetration level would be one of its major priorities. According to the Vice Chairman of Vanguard Assurance, Dr. Gideon Amenyodo, aside bank assurance, insurance companies can leverage technology to help boost penetration levels.
I think that what's going to work far, far better is getting the customer straight using the app and the rest. That's even the developed countries, they are moving from this bank assurance. It's more of, you want to take motor insurance, you don't have to walk over. Just download Vanguard app or download Star app and whatsoever. So that's the main thing now. So I think that's what is done everywhere now. And I believe that most companies are started in Ghana, and it will see the, yeah, should drive, business, because it makes it convenient. You don't have to drive through traffic. Even bank assurance, you still have to go to the bank. But if it's an app, I want to buy home insurance, personal insurance, renew my car, I don't have to walk. I just download the app, feel the details, I'm there. So that's what we should all encourage. I mean, it makes it more convenient, more easy.
Dr. Amenyodo was speaking at the launch of Vanguard's CIMG Hall of Fame Award and Corporate Social Responsibility Initiative. Known as the Jesus Loves Street Children, the initiative will give support to street children by enrolling them in schools or vocational institutions.
In every society, the poor will always be there, and as we are blessed, we must always remember, government should step up its effort towards rehabilitating people, caring for people who are marginalized, who are on the streets. And the corporate world, more especially, to join Vanguard Assurance and make sure that we provide hope for these people. Some of them could be star performers, so they could be great. But you see, we are just rotting all these talents.
Well, the country's biggest reinsurance company, Ghana Reinsurance, has initiated steps to increase its market share in Africa by expanding its operations to Francophone countries using Cameroon as a hub. The company is already in Kenya and also planning to explore more opportunities in other East African markets. Management has, in this bid, shot up its capital by 15 million Ghana cedis to 85 million currently. The managing director, George Mensah, who spoke to Joy Business at the bank's annual general meeting, said this should also enable the company to take advantage of the opportunities in the oil and gas industry. Now, the company grew its profit by 51% as at December 2016 after recording 48 million Ghana cedis in 2016 as against 31 million in 2015. It presented a 6 million cedi check to its majority shareholder government as dividend for the 2016 business year. Well, away from the insurance industry, and President Akufo-Addo has tasked the Energy Ministry to add at least 10% renewable energy to the country's power mix by 2030. It is part of efforts to gradually shift from over-reliance on hydro for generation. Deputy Minister of Energy, William Orekwedu, disclosed this at the commissioning of an 80-kilowatt solar project in Kumasi. Kwesi Debra reports.
The solar panels, located on the roof of the Pozzolana cement factory at the Belgian and Rose Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, produced 20 kilowatts of power. They reduced the research institution's consumption from the national grid by 15%. Daniel Asensu Jembibi is senior research scientist.
We are paying about 30 cedis every month to EC, but now we are paying about 20,000.
Hydropower is the leading source of generation, contributing more than half of the country's capacity. Thermal generation comes with high cost of fuel to power plants with annual estimated expenditure on fuel at $950 million.
The vision of the president is to have 10% renewables in the total energy mix of the country. And when I talk about renewable energy, I'm referring to solar, wind power, and biomass, waste to energy. All that constitute the renewable energy, and the target, based on the vision of the president, is to have 10% going forward to 2030, which we believe is totally achievable.
Maximilian Kwarting is Business Development Manager, Strategic Power Solutions, suppliers of solar energy to Bui Power. They produce 78.84 gigawatt hours to the country, and this feeds into the president's vision.
If government is to put 300 megawatt solar into the grid, there is going to be not less than $200 million annually savings on fuel.
Carter Solar System partnered the Building and Road Research Institute on the latest 60 kilowatt project. Dr. Eugene Atiemo is director at the BRRI.
We've been able to secure the relevant funding for supply and installation of an 80 kilowatt solar panel system. 20 kilowatts was installed last year, and 60 kilowatt power system have been added on this year.
Director at Carter, Dr. Kojuchu Mesiampo-Fapia, says business-friendly policies will attract more investors into solar energy.
There are investors out there. Perhaps if policies could give them tax incentives and other incentives, we can get more people to invest.
Building and Roads Research Institute is collaborating with the ECG to establish a net metering system to properly assess how much power it consumes. The excess can then be fed into the national electricity grid and taken back as when the institute needs it. Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Deborah.
Government has been charged to come up with a tracking system on migration to help rake in revenue. Speaking to Joy Business at the World Institute for Development Economics Research Conference on Migration and Mobility, economist Professor Ernest Aite revealed that such a system will boost inter-trade in Ghana.
How do we ensure that their benefits, the benefits of migration, far outweigh the costs of migration? It's not about whether migration is good or bad. That's not the issue. How do you ensure that the costs and benefits of migration are properly reflected and dealt with through policy?
Does it simply mean that as we speak now, there's no clear definition of how much we gain or lose out of migration or immigration?
You need first to understand the scope of migration. Nobody knows how many Ghanaians are traveling today through the desert to South Africa, to Libya. And nobody knows. Do you know that? Nobody knows that. So you've got to find a way of tracking that. You've got to find a way of measuring the impact of that. We know how many Ghanaians do travel by air to various places, how many of them stay behind, how many of them do return. We've got to find proper ways of recording this and documenting them. But I wouldn't make that commitment and say we are losing revenue. We've got to know it first. We've got to understand it first before we can make that determination. We do hope that there will be continuing interaction between us and the government, which will ensure that the findings and the continuing research will continue to be available to government policymakers.
Meanwhile, Director of the United Nations University, Professor Fintab, has expressed confidence in moves to create an open market through the Continental Free Trade Agreement in Africa. He's therefore calling for a clear guideline on how this trade agreement can be successful.
I believe that open movements of goods and also people tend, in general, to promote economic growth and development. Obviously, it has to be done in an orderly fashion, but all historical experience is based on an observation where you can see that if you have seen free movements of goods and people, then that tends to lead to stronger economic transformation, stronger processes of development, because people will seek out opportunities. And when people are seeking out opportunities, that underpins progress. The migration discussions at the global level, the purpose of this particular conference is to call attention to South-South migration, because in numbers of people who are actually migrating and moving from the south to the south is bigger than what we see from south to north. That is the point we are trying to bring out here at this conference, and then trying to think about how one can integrate the south-south migration in a good way within development strategies and policies in the south, in developing countries.
All right, let's do our interview of the day tonight. Deputy Chief of Party for the USAID Financing Ghana Agriculture Project, FINGAP, is imploring on agribusiness owners to be honest with financial institutions in order to access credit.
Interview of the day.
Lots of these universal banks who are also facilitating financing, of course, for prudent financial management, they will look out for some of these collateral. But they will tell them, look, that one is not the primary focus. The primary focus is that it's a very good deal, one. Do you have the requisite market? Two, what are those people behind those businesses? And by so doing, we've been able to support some of these financial institutions to close some deals. And they've also improved on their turnaround time. So I believe that the way forward is that let's be honest with the banks. And the banks are also open now. They know that now T-bill has gone down. So they don't have any option. Of course, they have options, but they also brought forward to the banner agribusiness finance, because agribusiness finance, notwithstanding the fact that they initially perceived that it was risky, now they know risky is something that they can do, and it's profitable. Because it's as a cycle. So when the cycle ends, you get your money back, and then you move on with it.
Okay. Now, they always say that the issue of finance has been a challenge for the sector. So how was the state, or let's say, what percentage of funds was going to that agri sector, and how have we improved right now? If you could help us with some figures.
Well, what I can say is that it varies. It depends on the sector that you're looking at. If you're looking at the microfinance level, they are doing more than 40, 50, 60%. If you look at the universal banks, they are doing average of about 15%. You can probably have one or two. I know the Barclays, for instance, is doing about 11% agribusiness financing. EcoBank is doing around that figure. ADB is doing about 30, 33%. But when you average all these financial institutions together, you are talking about 10 to 15%, which is not good enough. I believe we can do more. So in terms of those who are supporting agribusiness financing, it's more with the microfinance, the rural community bank, the social, the savings and loans, as well as the cooperative institutions.
Interview of the day.
And thanks for watching Business Live tonight. There's more business news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Interesting stories to read, including Pepsi responding, saying social media claims of contamination of products is baseless. We want to have a good read on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Daryl Kawia. Back same time tomorrow.